Hey y'all, it's Ryan. Even though Valentine's Day has come and gone, we're going to continue feeling the love with this fun cut paper effect in Procreate. So grab your drawing tools and let's get to it.
So for our design today, the first thing you need to do is start a new canvas. So the canvas size that I have chosen is 3000 by 3000 pixels with a 300 DPI. That way, if I choose to print this design, it will come out nice and clean and crisp. So the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to turn off the group and start on a blank layer. My background color, I have chosen this kind of muted pink, kind of blush pink right here, and I will link the color palette in the description below this video. So I went ahead and set my background color to that light pink, and then on a blank layer I used my Monoline brush, which is found in the Calligraphy brushes, and I went ahead and changed it to, it's a very light orange, almost white, but not pure white. And then I bumped my Monoline brush up to about 50%. And I am going to start off of my canvas and I am just going to draw a jagged line and then hold so it snaps to for me. And then I'm going to do that a second time underneath it, just to kind of create that chevron-y looking pattern. And I'm going to drag my color into that spot and let go so that it fills it. I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm actually going to tap and hold on the layer and drag it below my top layer because it's going to sit behind this yellow. And the second color I'm going to grab is this third one down in my color palette. It's a brighter pink, and I am just going to do the same steps. I'm going to start with my jagged line and I'm going to hold so that it snaps to for me. Drag and fill. I'm going to add a new layer again underneath, so I'm building down on my layers. I'm going to select this top pink on the second column. It's very similar to the pink we just used, but it is a little bit lighter, and go through the same steps. And then drag, make sure that's filled. Add a new layer below everything. And I'm going to select this really dark red. I'm going to go through the same steps for my dark red. And drag and fill. So I am going to repeat these steps down further, and I'm going to repeat this pattern. So I'm just creating a pattern out, and then it's going to start again here down at the bottom. So again, add a new layer. I'm going to come back to that pale orange and repeat that zigzag pattern. Now this is also going to fill up here at the top, which is perfect, it's what I want. I'm going to jump back to this brighter pink. There we go. Drag and fill. New layer. Change up to that much brighter pink. Drag and fill. There we go. Nope. Okay. And then my last layer is going to be that much darker red, and for this I am just going to drag and fill that in. So now comes in kind of the, I don't want to call it tedious part, but we are going to duplicate all of these layers so that we can then add a blur or a shadow to it to give it that depth to show the different layers and the stacking of the paper, so that it looks like we've cut out these different pieces and we've stacked them all on top of each other. So I'm going to start with my top layer. I'm going to swipe to the left and click duplicate. I'm going to select the second one now. Make sure my color is set to black. Click the layer and click select. So because I have, let me show you here, because I have color fill on here, it's going to automatically change that layer to black. So I'm going to do this on all of my layers. I'm going to go through and I'm going to duplicate, select the second one so that it fills it in black. Okay, now on this last layer, I'm not going to select it and add a blur or a shadow to it because it is the entire canvas is that color, so I'm not going to worry about it. So now coming back up to the top, I'm going to select my first black layer. I'm going to come into my adjustments menu and click blur. I like to set this blur at about 10%. Because it gives it that night you can see it, it's there, and it's very clear, as opposed to setting it much lower, it's really difficult to see. So I'm gonna slide my pen or your finger across your screen until I get to 10. So I'm gonna come into each one of my layers now, the black layer, the shadow layer that I've created. I'm going to select the adjustments tab and I'm going to set that blur up to 10% on each one of these shadows so that it matches throughout. Okay, and that is my last blurred layer. Now I also want to add some fun patterns just to add a little bit of funkiness to the design. So I'm gonna add a pattern onto my light yellow layers. And then I'm also going to skip this pink and go to the much brighter pink and add a design there as well. So on top of my first yellow layer, I'm going to click the plus sign, select that layer and select clipping mask. So that way whatever I color on that layer will only stay on that layer, but it also gives me the opportunity to mess with the opacity or move it around if need be. The first design I'm going to put is going to be found in textures, and I'm going to do the decimals pattern, and I'm going to change my color back to that dark red. I'm gonna have the opacity at 100 and the brush at 100, and I am just going to color, making sure not to stop or lift my pen so that I get a clear, oops, see right here, I need to fix that. So that way I get a clear, even pattern across this area. Okay, I'm going to do that on my second yellow layer as well, so same steps. Add a new layer, click on it and click clipping mask. And this I am going to, because it is much larger on the canvas, I'm going to zoom out of that canvas so it gives me an easier brush stroke on my page. Okay, so then again I am skipping a texture or a design on this layer. I'm going to come down to my brighter pink, click new layer and select clipping mask. I'm going to keep the dark red as my color, but I am going to change to this diagonal pattern now. So this, again, same process. Nice big, nope. Try that again. Just to make sure that I get all of that area. Okay, come down to the same one, same color, add a layer, click on clipping mask, and go through that same process down here. Okay, So now I have this fun and funky design kind of going. I am going to change the opacity on the decimals. I'm gonna make it just a little lighter. I'm gonna set that down to about 50%. I'm gonna do the same thing on this layer of it. Okay, just so it's not as bold and in your face. Okay, so now comes in the point where we add our word to our layers. So I'm gonna add a new layer because I'm going to be messing with color here. But to add text, I'm going to click on my wrench, click add, and then click add text. I'm going to delete. I'm gonna put on caps lock and I'm going to just type in the word love. Now I'm going to click on my text to select it all. I'm going to click on the text, the font. I like using marker felt. Make sure it's set to wide because it will give me the most space in my letters. But you do have a few other fonts. Scroll through your fonts to decide which one you would like. I would just like wider, thicker letters so I can actually see, because this is all going to come through the letters. Okay, so I'm gonna click my select. I'm going to move it until it's centered on my canvas, and I am going to fill my canvas first off with it. Make sure it's centered. There we go. And then secondly, I'm going to change the font color to black. There we go. I want this word to take up a lot more of my canvas. So I'm gonna come back to my select tool and I'm gonna click on freeform, and I'm going to drag my letters down and up so I'm stretching them out, and then I'm going to again just make sure that they are centered on my canvas. There we go. Okay, so now that I have my word positioned where I want it, I am going to, in my layers, I'm going to fill this layer with pure white. So fill layer. And now I'm going to select my letters in this layer, and I'm going to cut them out in my white layer. So here's how you do this. So make sure you have your text layer selected. Click on the select tool. Make sure color fill's turned off. Okay. Okay. So I have my lines showing me that it is selected. I can turn that off and you can very faintly see where my letters are. In my white layer, I'm going to tap on that layer and click clear. So now I have my letters cut out of my white background. I can leave that layer alone, or you can actually delete it if you want. But I also want to do one more step of adding a drop shadow on my letters around the outsides of it, around the border, so that way it again just builds in that cut paper effect. So to do that, I'm going to swipe to the left and duplicate this layer. Make sure I'm on the bottom layer, and I am going to drag my black color into that layer, and then drag it, make sure I have it in the O as well. So now if I look at this layer, I can clearly see that it is filled with black, but I still have my cut out of my letters. Come into my adjustments, click on the blur again, and I am again just going to set that up to 10 because that's what I've done, because you don't want to get it too much and then cover everything. So I'm going to set it back to 10 like I did on my other layers. And now you can see I have that outline. I'm going to take this one step further. I'm going to use my selecting tool, and I am just barely going to move that bottom layer, that blur layer, down and to the right. Just so that way you get a nice shadow, just like you would if a light was shining. and it just adds more depth on one side as opposed to being even everywhere else. So our final steps for this piece is going to be adding that background color to my piece up here. So I am going to come into my color palette and select that top dusty rose pink. I'm going to drag it into that layer, and into the O. And then I am actually going to give it sort of a pastel texture to it so it has that paper feel. To do that, in my brushes, I am going to come into the sketching brush library and I'm going to select soft pastel. Now on this, since I have this pink selected, I'm gonna go just a hair darker. I'm gonna keep it at 100 and the opacity at 100 because I'm going to add a clipping mask here on this layer, and I am just going to draw, color in. It's okay if it's not completely even, but when you zoom in, you can see this nice texture to now my page. And then I can come into my adjustments on that layer and I can set that opacity down to about 50. And I still get that nice pretty texture look to my page, but I still have that nice dusty pink in the background.
So there we have it, a really fun and simple way to give that cut paper effect in Procreate. Thank you so much for spending some time and drawing with me today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel and click the bell so that you're notified when new videos are posted. Hope to see you soon.